A new report out reveals a special grand jury recommended charges against Senator Lindsey Graham and two former U.S. senators related to efforts to overturn Georgia's 2020 presidential election results. Prosecutors ultimately decided not to indict them. And new here at 6, Dr. Stephen Caliendo, political science professor at North Central College, is joining us live for some analysis. Thanks for being with us. Stephen, normally special grand jury reports are secret. In this case, it reveals how extensive that work was. What stood out to you about what was in this report?
That's right, Ray. It's really interesting. You know, we had talked about the Fulton County case as being a broader case. That is, if you think about Jack Smith's federal investigation into what happened on January 6th, it really just targeted Donald Trump and then had some unnamed co-conspirators, where Fani Willis had 19 defendants. What we learned today was that a special grand jury, which is not the same as a grand jury that makes indictments, but a special grand jury made recommendations for even more than that. And so what we learned today is that Fani Willis made careful decisions about which of those recommendations would end up being in the charges that she was going to bring, and which would not.
Now, among that group, ultimately, Lindsey Graham was not indicted. Why do you think he wasn't?
It's hard to know exactly. I mean, what I can sense from what we learned today is that maybe his efforts were more focused on at the federal level. But when I say the federal level, I mean multiple states. That is not the federal level, but at the state level, but also in Arizona, Pennsylvania, other places where this is a Georgia case. And so even if he had some interactions with Georgia, and we know that he did, if there wasn't enough information or a suggestion to bring forward charges, then she wasn't going to do it. Remember, there's no defense in these things, right? And the burden of proof in a criminal case is much higher. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. So we know that some of the special grand jurors did not vote to recommend to indict Senator Lindsey Graham. All it takes is one in a jury for a hung jury, and then you have to spend resources to try the case again if you choose to do that. Of course, there's political consequences to that in a case like this as well.
Yeah, we should say that Graham said that he did nothing wrong, and it is interesting how those are not unanimous decisions. What did we learn about the special grand jury's focus on Trump himself?
Well, there's not so much. I mean, the former president, of course, is the centerpiece of all of this because it's a racketeering charge. It's a racketeering charge, which means that of all the 19 people who were ultimately charged, they could have committed acts that were not crimes in and of themselves, but together and under the direction, either directly or indirectly, of the former president. They combine to have criminal charges that can be brought against them. And so it's a really interesting approach. We've talked about this a little bit before. The former president had another blow today, probably because a federal judge said that Mark Meadows could not bring his case to federal court. And of course, the Trump campaign, or the Trump attorneys, the Trump camp, and many others were waiting to see how that one fell, to see if they could relocate theirs as well. So it was an interesting day for Donald Trump, for sure.
The other people, unindicted senators, Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue, many others that you alluded to. What do we know about their roles, even if they didn't rise, as you said, to the level of something deemed criminal?
The whole point of bringing a special grand jury together is to determine whether or not there was some criminal activity and organized criminal activity. This is the reason why special grand juries are used, why they don't bring charges themselves but make recommendations. And so it really gave us a sense of the scope. And we kind of knew it anyway. Remember, Ray, there's 19 defendants in this case, but I think there were another 31 or there were over 30 others mentioned as co-conspirators and not named in the Fulton County report too. Some of those would be the people that were mentioned here in this report that came out today. As you said at the outset, though, typically these reports are not made public. The judge decided to unseal these parts of it, partly because the indictments already came down for so many, and so I think he believed that due process was not going to be violated by opening this up.
Just a few seconds left here, Stephen. Yesterday, Trump advisor Peter Navarro was found guilty of contempt of Congress for not appearing before the January 6th committee. What is your sense about all of this, the state of things as the election looms next year?
No, Ray, it's so complicated and so much is going to happen and continue to unfold. We also know this week that James Jordan sent a note to Fani Willis asking for cooperation on her part to participate in an investigation of her investigation. And what's interesting there compared to the Navarro thing is if the House decides to subpoena her and she has to decide whether she's going to cooperate or not cooperate, you can't have it both ways. If Democrats are saying, look, you have to show up when we ask you, it's going to be difficult for Fani Willis to decide not to without having some political blowback.
All right. Dr. Stephen Maynard Caliendo with North Central College. Great to catch up with you once again. Thanks so much.
Have a good weekend, Rick.
You too.